views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
The NYPD union passes a vote of no confidence in police commissioner and the mayor. Small increases in murder in the city compared to 2018, but October's murder rate of 28% according to the latest NYPD figures. The question is our policing working? Well, stay tuned. We'll discuss that here on Perspectives.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime. And of course, we invite you to stay connected to us on our social media, as well as watching here every week, BronxNet Channel 67, Verizon 5, that's 33, or anytime on the web. Well, coming up on today's show, the NYPD PBA union passed a vote of no confidence in New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and Police Commissioner James O'Neill back in August, expressing their dissatisfaction and the calling for the firing of Commissioner O'Neill. Now, across the boroughs, there have been recent increases in crime and shootings, and although that increase is compared to just about 1% in 2018, according to the NYPD recent figures, October alone has seen about 32 murders across the borough. Retired NYPD Sergeant Kevin Smith joins me now, and he shares with us a little bit more and weighs in on this and much more. Good to have you.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Well, out of the game, but you're still in the game, huh?
I'm a citizen of this city, born and raised.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming and sharing with us, talking a little bit about this. Let's start off. I mean, the lead talked about the police commissioner, mayor, receiving a vote of no confidence from the police union. What exactly does that mean?
It means absolutely nothing. It's rhetoric coming from the union leadership. It means absolutely nothing. James O'Neill has a lengthy career where he's fostered great relationships and gained great respect amongst his peers and his subordinates. And their vote of no confidence because he doesn't want to side with them and regurgitate their nonsense. That vote of no confidence means absolutely nothing to me and probably to many people who wear the uniform that look like us probably appreciate the fact that the union doesn't have confidence because that means he, as the commissioner, is probably doing the right thing.
Right. Usually when you have that usually is a signal that, there's a difference and that the police commissioner is definitely going in a different kind of direction. Let's talk a little bit about that, though. Are you comfortable with the way you see things?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with him. Pat Lynch is doing what Pat Lynch is supposed to do as the PBA president. If he didn't step forward, then there might be a vote of no confidence from the membership against him, and that would ultimately probably result in him being voted out of office. So he's just pandering.
Yeah. Watched Pat Lynch down through the years. We've had some conversations. I think my biggest challenge with him is I've never heard him admit he's wrong.
No, and you will never.
Wow. So you've had that experience too, huh?
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Wow.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. And so also in addition to the police commissioner, we also heard the vote of no confidence in the mayor. What is it that the police union is really looking at when we talk about the mayor?
I have no idea. The police union and police unions generally are very Republican. And de Blasio, of course, is a Democrat. And, I don't have a lot to say with regard to him because I myself am not a fan of de Blasio. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a staunch Democrat. And I did not vote for him. I voted other, just not to vote for him in the past election. I don't have any confidence in him. And I thought it was actually comical that he thought he could run for president.
Yeah. What did you make of the campaign?
I thought it was a useless exercise, a waste of time, a waste of money, but he wasn't wasting any of my money. He was wasting the money of his donors. So,
Yeah.
it reflected, I think his lack of success reflected what majority of people think. And, he doesn't have the confidence of his constituents here in the city. So what made him think that he was going to have that nationwide?
Yeah. Well, people sometimes, they run because they're trying to run from a place to a place, right? and some people said, well, he may be trying to run from here to someplace else, but maybe not the presidency, but you strive for the highest office, and then hope that maybe you'll land somewhere else.
Right? Yeah.
Reach
for the stars and land on the moon.
That's it. That's the conversation that's being had. So as we look at crime now, we talked about those statistics. What are we to make about the murder statistics going up in our borough?
These things, they fluctuate, and murder itself is generally a crime of passion. You can't measure that instantaneous passion. You don't know why it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. If you did, you'd be able to address it. We're not having so many random murders. We're having things that happen that are, people who are known to each other, and those passions arising within them and ultimately resulting in someone being killed, as opposed to going back to, say, Detroit in the 80s with drive-by shootings. People randomly being murdered. This is not what's happening. These are largely people who know each other.
Is there anything we should be paying attention to?
There probably is, but that's on a psychological level. So, our psychiatrists and psychologists would have to address that, our sociologists, and see exactly what is festering. Is there some underlying current that's going on that's feeding a small frenzy?
We've heard a lot recently. Talk a little bit about what went on in Dallas, Texas. The shootings of Amber Geiger, Botham Jean. Did you see another shooting again? First of all, give me your perspective.
It was bad enough being black and reaching for your wallet or walking down the street and eating Skittles. Now you can't even be at home and be safe. And that's really, they've crossed the line many times, but that's the final border. That is the final border. I can't be safe sitting at home in my living room or, in a bedroom playing a game with a child. I can't be safe.
Right.
And, these are incidents that obviously are only happening to people of color. And that's a sad commentary on what's going on in this country.
So, in the case of the most recent shooting, there was a talk about it was a wellness check. The call was supposed to be made for a wellness check.
Right.
Then we found out that it really wasn't a wellness check. It was a different kind of call. And basically that left some interpretation up to the officer. From what you've heard, what you saw, what do you take as to what went wrong?
I can't say exactly what went wrong, and I can't tell you what's in the heart of another person, but his actions were thoroughly and completely improper. There's no training, no police training that would have made what he did proper. And the reaction to it was swift. He was fired immediately. And apparently they don't have the protections, the civil service protections down there that you would have here, where he couldn't have been fired summarily. You would have still had to go through the process in order to fire him. But he was fired immediately, and it was the correct and proper response.
Right. And when you talk about the civil protections, obviously those are major, right? Because when you look here in New York City, we've heard, we talked about Officer Pantaleo, the list goes on of officers here. And those civil protections really make a difference, particularly favoring police officers.
I don't know that it favors the police officer. What it does is there tends to be, this is a liberal city. And when someone makes an allegation against a police officer, there tends to be a rush to judgment that police officer is automatically guilty. So when you're wearing a uniform or carrying a badge, there's a presumption that you are guilty until proven innocent. And those protections are there so that you can have fair due process.
Coming back, and we'll talk more with retired NYPD Sergeant Kevin Smith, our guest here on Perspectives.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
We're back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you. Our guest in studio, retired NYPD Sergeant Kevin Smith, who joins us talking much about what is going on in the state of New York City. I know you're removed, right? But you're still connected.
Yes.
Yes. So when we talk about morale, right? What's the morale like amongst rank and file right now?
I haven't been in contact with much of the rank and file in recent times, so I couldn't answer a question about what morale is. I can go by what I've seen. You know, there are a number of officers in the gym where I work out, and so you know you hear some of the conversations, and it fluctuates from day to day. You know, some days they're feeling good about the job, and other days they're not. But I don't have my finger on the pulse of the morale of officers, and even you know, some of my close friends who are still there. As a matter of fact, I have one protege of mine who is retiring tomorrow.
Ah.
Yeah, so he's having a little surprise celebration tomorrow at PSA 4 downtown Manhattan. So that's his last tour.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I know his morale is good.
Yeah. And so is yours, right?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying the retired life?
Retired life is a beautiful thing. You know, I left the job 18 years ago, spent 10 years with the assembly and a few years doing IT work. And now I'm comfortably retired.
Yeah. Are there times that you look and you say, man, I wish I was working?
There have been, there are moments where things are happening and you look at something and say, you know, I think I could have done something a little different here or there that might have improved the circumstance, you know. And I had the confidence of my subordinates. You know, on 9/11, I got phone calls. I was off that day. I was on vacation, and I got phone calls from my team, and they were looking for direction because they had a supervisor with them that didn't know what they were doing. And I'm on the phone speaking to them and said, well, you know, you've got to follow instructions, but if you feel that your life is in danger because of what these instructions are, then you got to do what you got to do.
Right. So you weren't around on 9/11?
I was still a member of the
Right.
service, but I was
no,
not.
but you were on vacation.
I was on vacation.
Right. So given the fact of what happened with 9/11, how quickly did you have to come back?
When the second plane hit the tower, I already knew it was time to go to work.
Wow.
You know, the first, when you're getting into that picture of what's going on, and that these things are happening, and you're thinking that this is an accident, and then you're watching the television, and you watch that second plane come and hit the tower. My first thought was, this is terrorism, and that means my vacation just ended. I'm going back to work. And within a half an hour, I was at the 120 precinct.
What was it like?
There was a lot of confusion, concern, but people were there and they were ready to do what needed to be done to defend our city. And that's one of those moments in time where you're actually proud of what you do, because you're looking at people and different sizes, shapes, and colors and ethnicities, and nobody is concerned about your differences anymore.
Yeah.
They're only concerned about saving the city.
9/11 was the greatest, was the tragedy. 9/12 to me was the greatest day to be an American.
Yeah, it
to
was.
watch people
Come together.
and work.
Yeah.
We ain't seen nothing since then, huh?
No, unfortunately, it's been 18 years since we've had that time, and now what do we have instead? We have utter divisiveness coming from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah. How do you assess what you see out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, talking about the president, and given the fact that you look now and you see a Republican Party that's almost been, it's not a word, but I'll use it, puppetized.
They largely have. They largely have. There are a group of them that see something in falling in line behind Trump they believe is going to benefit them at some point, which is why, they allow him to play this role of king, and they fall in line. But the true Republicans don't do it. They respect what our democracy is supposed to be. They respect the Constitution. They respect the equality of the three branches of our government. And Trump thinks it's all about Trump's way, which is why he likes, the Putins and the Kim Jong-uns and, all the autocrats of the world, especially despotic ones.
Right.
So his time is coming.
You think so?
Oh, it's coming, and he knows it. He knows it. That's why he becomes.
Are you speaking impeachment, or are you just speaking he just won't get reelected?
Well, both things are going to happen. The impeachment is as sure as the sun will come up tomorrow. The reelection, we didn't think he was going to get elected the first time, but I don't believe that America is silly enough to continue this path, because the democracy is far more important than any individual.
The presidential election is the most important election. I think that it's the most popular election, right? I think the most important elections are the ones that you have basically here locally. But I want to come back and talk about this, because 53% of eligible American voters did not vote in the last presidential election. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that and whether or not we see that number changing. All right, come back in a few seconds.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Back here on Perspectives, continue our conversation with former NYPD Sergeant Kevin Smith, our guest. Before the break, we talked about 53% of eligible American voters did not partake in the last presidential election. You got a prediction? What do you think?
I see that number flipping, and I would like to see, from a realistic perspective, 60% of the votership coming out. But the reality is you should be at 95%. There's absolutely no reason for you not to vote, not to understand what this democracy is about, and what the power of the President of the United States is, particularly when, you know, that's the election where the greatest number of people come out to vote. And there are people who are they just don't care. They think that, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, we got a president in that office right now that's showing you it does matter. Our reputation across the world is being destroyed by this man. And, you know, for the short period of time that it would have taken to go cast a vote, he wouldn't be there. It's only 77,000 people that made a difference with this electoral college, which of course needs to be abolished. You know, that was a different time. People were far less educated when this Constitution was formed and the rules were developed. And they put that electoral college in as a safeguard. Don't need that safeguard anymore. But it's not going anywhere, because if you watch the elections since Ronald Reagan, without the electoral college, Republicans cannot win the presidency. So they are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that the electoral college remains.
Talk about Democrats for a minute. Obviously, I've said on the show several times that in order for Democrats to be successful, to defeat Donald Trump, there has to be a greater message than just being anti-Trump.
There does. Well, the message they're trying to get to it, but they're infighting now, because one of the bigger messages is of course improving Obamacare and trying to get that to what it was that President Obama envisioned when he first introduced the health care bill, getting that to where it needs to be so that Americans are safe and protected. And while the Republicans are back on that path of trying to get rid of it altogether and having no fail-safe, although they've spent, since Hillary Clinton first came up with national health care 20-some-odd years ago, they've sworn that they got a better deal. But it's 23 years later, and we still haven't heard what that is. So they don't have a plan. They only have a plan to get rid of it. All they have a plan to do is to continue to undo Obama's presidency.
When you look at 2020, what's going to be the difference maker for you in terms of this presidential election? What do you think is going to be the difference maker?
Personally, there's not going to be a difference maker for me in terms of the general election. I'm going to vote for the Democrat regardless of who it is. So, you know, as primary season goes, the difference maker becomes that person that shows me that they have a plan that they can actually follow through on, that's something that resonates with me, you know, having the health care and criminal justice reforms and things of that nature, and then showing me you also have what it takes to stand up to this current president in a debate, to be able to expose him for the fraud that he is and belittle him.
Right. Got just a little under a minute left, but I want to go back to the NYPD for a minute. What can we expect going forward?
We can expect what always happens. There's a little turmoil for a while. There's some pushback on the administration, and then everybody just tends to fall back in line. Things go back to normal. the rhetoric calms down and reality sets in, and people go. The vast majority of men and women in our police department are there to do the right thing. You know, you got 35 some odd thousand people or more in an organization. Everybody's not perfect.
Right.
Everybody's not great. There's going to be a few people, there's always going to be a few bad apples, and there are going to be incidents. We've got the biggest police department in the country, so there are going to be incidents that are going to arise, and we're going to have to address those. But at the end of the day, we'll all come back together, and we'll move forward, and we will correct whatever those mistakes are.
Kevin Smith, it's been a pleasure, my brother.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Got to bring you back, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Kevin Smith, our guest here on Perspectives. That about wraps it up for us here on the show. Thank you for watching. Until the next time we meet, stay safe. Share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in somebody else's life. Daren Jaime saying, take care. God bless.
Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light, cause it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.